let's see, gonna quick check Twitch, see that I'm up, and then I'll get started. Alright, cool. So, let's see, the last thing I did was I just started breaking everything that fonts do, and I barely made any progress off screen. When I hit this, I decided not to keep thinking about it. But now, I'm gonna continue the thinking. So, the issue I hit was that, I've got, a lot of code here, especially this code here, which is about to look into the font and do something, and with data in the font, and it's not totally clear to me whether, how I want to resolve this. So let's see. And the issue in this particular case is that font structures, let's see, this is in the style exporter, it looks like. Style file format. Yeah, because this is outputting to a file format from the actual style struct. And the question is, when it goes to save the font, where is it going to get this font name from? Because the style only has a font ID. Right, but if I change this to be font ID, like so, now we don't have a font struct, and we need the font's name. So, there's, basically two things that can happen here that I can think of that are obvious possibilities. One being that when you save this, it has to tell the system, hey, load up the name for this font, and it's a part of the temporary space that it can swap in font names, possibly independently of their actual glyph data. But it also could be that there's a separate thing that just is like the hash table but in reverse, because the hash table will give me name to ID. I could have ID back to name and just have the names and ID. The names and IDs are always just sort of allocated this way. I've already got a hash table that goes from name to ID anyway. So I'm already sort of storing stuff. I already have to have the strings stored alive, and I have to have at least enough memory to store them in a hash table. So it seems like there's not much question in my mind that I could just go ahead and say strings are always available, you have the ID and you ask for it, and that's that. Which kind of makes sense. It's just that obviously that capability is nowhere near to being in existence right now, and even if it was, neither of these two things would be the thing that carries it. So I'm gonna say that I want to try that one first, which is the one where I have an array that gives an ID and spits back out a string, which is the name of the font, and that the font set should be the thing handling that. Font set. That's not here, is it? Font set? No. What about here? Font set? There it is. Okay. So right now the font set is just a hash table for going from a name to an ID, but it looks like I also want the ability to have sort of what would it be, font. What is the table entries got in it? A hash, a name, and an ID. It's interesting because I want one of these for storing it in a hash table. The other one would be font info or something like this, which has also got a name in it. At least that's all it's got for now. Info. And yeah, that would just use the count, so that should be fine. Whoops. Now what I don't have right now is when I go to add something, I add the name with an ID. Seems like probably what I want is... Does this, by the way, update the count? No. One second. Alright, so what I want is when I do a font set add, that's adding to the table, so that's more like add hash, right? That adds something to the hash portion of the table. I also need, if they share the same numbers, will that be an issue, I wonder? Well, whenever it reallocates, it'll be reallocating before it ran out of entries. So it won't be as memory efficient as possible, but we're just talking about one name struct, which is pretty small. And hopefully it won't get much bigger than that. I don't think it, like, it might end up having glyph metrics in there, because I don't know what I'm doing about that issue yet. But I should look up Handmade Hero font stuff and see if I can get a clue from there. Well, I think, let's see. I think it's okay to just run off of the one count and max for now. So I need the ability to just say I want to add to a font set a single name. And you know what? I do need something else with the font info. I need, well, okay, so font info is in a font set. And I'm not sure that a font set actually goes around hanging out throughout the whole program, which is what I'm going to have it do now, but render target, there it is. But yeah, I've already got the array of fonts right here. I think I would just actually switch to saying set. Something along the lines of, you've got a font pointer here, and here what we have is a font set called fonts. That'll break everything again. Yeah, and font set needs to be hoisted out now because it's hanging out in here and it's not really a style issue anymore. So I think the application side is actually doing all of the work of managing this. I don't want this to be platform side where the functions go, but what does that actually lead to? So when it goes to do work, it's going to request files, sort of independently, has to continuously do the font load function to the platform. If it's a platform thing, that's fine. I don't care. Because if I just have the array of fonts here, then that means everywhere I go, I'm going to be passing a render target and a set of fonts everywhere. And it won't be easy, because I'll always want to have the ability. It really seems like the mapping from font names to font IDs and back should be available to anyone who's going to do rendering. And then the question is, who is in charge of managing adding things to that? And I mean, that should be application side, right? That's 100% application side. But then when it comes time to render, that's platform side, and you do need the ability, at least you give them a font ID, and you can resolve that like that. I don't think the rendering side ever has to do any work with it, so it should be fine. It just means that these things need to pop over here. Right. Now everywhere that I did that, that's wrong again. It's actually fonts info dot font arrow. It's like totally nuts, right? That's what it's going to take to get this correct. Yeah. So that warrants a get font function, I think. I think I already have a get font somewhere, maybe, but okay. Okay. And now we're back to where I left off. Okay. Now the next issue here is that we need a render target just to get, or at least we need a font set, right? We at least need a font set. And then what I need is like font name equals get font name from the set. Here's the font ID, right? It's going to complain get font name doesn't exist, which is correct. It doesn't. Okay. Okay, that was messed up. Let's try this again. There we go. Rendering helper get font. I also want font set. Get font name. Looks like this. Rendering helper, and then back to rendering.h. It's .name. Okay. So then this is just font name dot string. Font name dot size. Font name dot size. All right. Format for file. This needs the font set is what it needs. Okay. Alright, so here we're seeing a question of that height variable there. A K state. Who is state? UI state. Yeah, so the UI state now comes with the font ID. So the question has to be not what's the height of this font I'm pointing to, but what's the height of this font that I've got a name for. And let's see, just to kill a second there, I think I need a render target. Okay, and using that, what I can do is render font equals get font target font ID. I swear I did a get font already. If you have a font, height is that. I think that just needs to be like that. Then height equals whatever you get out of the font. I'm me go back to rendering rendering helper again. And now what I want to do is I want to say, okay, yeah, that can just be 0, so that's fine. Set target. Right. Okay, so actually those will work fine. The way it'll happen is you just set one of these to 0 in the font set, and then it's unloaded, and it will behave thusly. Let's see. Font height shows up right there. So what we need is get font. And this is where it sort of sucks, but that's okay. Style, font ID. Where are we going to get the font set from? I could pass it in as a parameter, probably. I wonder if I can get to it from anybody else. Panel command map of do view function. Panel command function. Pointer to your memory options. That's all you've got. Well, that's probably good. Probably wouldn't want the render target to be stored, but that does mean that I'm passing the font set in as a parameter here, I think. And that's fine. Basically, now we're at a point where everything that uses a font uses any of the features of a font is now going to have to have the font set, basically, is the way that looks. So, let's see, what are you using the font for? Again, for the height. The height of a font might be something I want to store in such a way that I don't actually have to load it, because it seems like that comes up a lot. So, I might think about doing like a get font height situation and be able to put the set there and the ID there and getting the height that way. Which means basically doing the same thing as this again. Oops, no, not that, as this. Except instead of strings, now it's I32s for height, and instead of names, those will all say height. And now I just have to pop over here and add height into one of the permanent fixtures in the font info struct. Get font height. And now you're complaining that you don't have a font set. That's fine. Now you do have a font set. What are you using the font for? Font height and advanced data. Buffer cursor from position. The advanced data is an array, so I don't think we can get out of that the same way. I'm gonna leave font height in for now just so I can be lazy and say that that works. But I do need to say, look, full cursor result is just gonna hang out here, and we only really can go ahead with this if we got the font. So there we go. These are all gonna basically have the same situation. If you got the font, and you need a font set. And you need a font set. And you need to do all of this work. Compute cursor from unwrapped XY. What is your problem? Oh, you just need font set, right? So that you can pass it on to these guys who now need it. Now, there could be a lot of these view functions that end up needing this. Maybe I want to say that I pass it in through the file view itself. What would be upsides and downsides on that? If it's in the file view, well, it can possibly get buggy if I were to switch, but it wouldn't. It would always be a pointer to the one in the render target. It could only ever be the one throughout. Like if I were going to switch to a different font set, why would I want to switch to a different font set? I don't think I would. I think there would only ever be one font set that I would want, so it would be dumb-ish to have it pointed to from all these different places, but it's easy to get to the place it needs to get to then. So it'll be near other memory that's related, and it'll just be copies of it here and there because different places in memory need it. If I were to pass it as a function, I could change it out. Like I said, I don't think I would want to do that, and I have to do a lot of this work to pass it through. Yeah, I think I want to put that in the file view. So let me see where I did font set stuff. Take it back out. And say instead that that just goes in the file view. Font set. There you go. Alright. Font set. Boop, 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 boop. Doop. 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 Yep, this is fine. I'm happy with this. Just gotta make sure it gets set now for the views. Okay. Which basically... why did you... why would you do this? Oh my goodness. Okay. So the render font is actually font advanced, font height. Interesting. If I'm caching that into the view, then the only time I should ever be getting the font... Okay. I'm going to fix that first, because I feel like there's a lot of places here where I went and got this when I should have been using the views font height. So that's a little bit of slop that's been sitting around for a while that could really just go now. Once and for all. Font advance. Now there's not even a need for getting the font, right? We cached into the view a local copy of information about the font. View, for everything that we need. Well, advanced data is not... Wait a minute. View font height equals... Yeah, so let me undo something. I think I was too overzealous there. The font advanced data is still needed. So it's really just font height that we can get rid of through the view there. Because advanced data is not the same as the... Because that's like the per character advanced stuff. Font. Yeah, I didn't even properly undo everything. Okay. There we go. Advanced data. Of course, this opens us up to bugs when the style changes, but it seems like these variables already exist, so somebody somewhere was using them, or they existed or something, so either these are being handled correctly or they weren't, and we need to catch the bugs related anyway. But I don't really like having that sitting there and not being used if in every place where it could be used. It's a little bit wasteful. Better to lean on the system as hard as you can to find more bugs more quickly, or to completely remove it. And in this case, I wanted it to stay around. Now we're finally back. Well, I'm getting font in those 3 locations. What am I getting font here for? Font for font height and nothing else. So that's again actually a matter of taking... Wait. Oh, in this case I don't have a view, do I? Do text field, widget ID, state. Yeah, okay. Okay, so what am I using that font right there for? I'm using it to answer these questions. I'm wondering about how much stuff I want to have in the font info section that's always loaded, and how much I want to have in the dynamically loaded section. I think I'll go with this being, I mean, the problem is like I said, if these get set wrong, that's a problem. So it's almost like I want to have a way of saying, get this font for sure, and it'll wait for that font to finish loading if it hasn't loaded yet, to be certain that it's got what it needs. And gets the right answer, or I can put that in font info, and then I don't need to get the font itself. I don't even need to load the font to use this. Well, for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the info, so it's kind of an easier route for me to get my head around. Get font advance. Set style font ID. And I'm also wondering at what point I want to stop having an inline function for each variable and just say you get the whole struct, do whatever you want, right? Because that would look a little bit simpler on this end. Font info, get font info, font set font ID result equals set info plus font ID return result. Insofar as asks if this is related to the font hinting stuff I was doing the other day. And I mean, it's only sort of related. It's kind of related. I mean, obviously they're both about fonts. The motivation behind them are a little bit different. One of them was I wanted my font to figure out ways I could learn to make my fonts look better. The other one is I'm looking for ways to make my fonts more platform independent, but there's some crossover in that concern because a lot of the time, one way to do fonts that look kind of good is to rely on the operating system. So what I'm actually doing right now is like ensuring that I don't have to rely on the operating system, but could rely on the operating system for font rendering, so that I have a flexibility to find the best way to render a font. So there's some like overlap concern there in terms of the available methods for how I do good-looking font rendering. But the main concern that I have right now is locking down is before I start doing lots of porting work. Like I've got the basic Linux stuff kind of up and running, but before I do a hard lockdown on the interface, I want to make sure I'm happy with it. And I'm not really happy with how the font interface was working, so that's actually what's going on right now in a more direct sense. Alright, now I'm going to try to take out all of these other little functions. See if we can get down to just those two. And then what is going to happen is it's going to complain about these spots where it does things like get font, but really what I want there is get, is here I want an F32 advance, and here I want to do get font info and then get the advance from the result of that. Get font info, get the font. Now here what I actually have to do is say that the result equals 0, and then if the font exists, the result is all of this. Get the font info, pull out the name. No, this isn't what I want. Height, actually. So, height. What else am I using the font for? Nothing. So, get font info. Height. Here I believe I'm actually using the font in its entirety. So get font info font. Info font. Info font. Now here what I want is font info itself. This was the inspiration for that whole switch. Because I thought, hey, I'm going to be looking up into this array twice from two different functions that are right next to each other. That's kind of dumb. How about I smarten up a little bit? There we go. Alright, now where are we? Here it looks like we need font height, so file view, yes, so that's font get info view set view style font ID. Of course, we also have the even more expedient view font height. What else am I using the font for here, I wonder? Alright, so the font shows up in a few spots, but those will be replaced with font IDs. So, let me kill those. This is UI state, UI layout. Does the UI state have a font set? It should. Get font info fonts state style font ID height. Really? Okay, wait a minute. Does the UI state have a render target? It does. Okay, so I don't actually need that. What I actually need is render fonts. UI state fonts go away. Target fonts. Now I actually could just hoist that out. Target. Target font ID. Alright, so again, character height, font get info. Wait a minute. I could just do that and less myself that whole thing there. Target info, target font ID. Get font info. Conversion to F32. Conversion from F32 to I32. What am I even? Line height, line height, okay. That's kind of stupid. View widget height. I'm passing a font so I can get its height? Dumb. Let's say I pass the font height itself and call it a day. What about you? What am I passing the font for you for? Dumb. Let's see. Mr/Mrs. Jexis, something like that, asks what version of Windows I'm running, and it's Windows 7. Don't let the classic theme throw you. Alright, so view widget rect font. Yes, there's some Framely Do stuff there. I think that's where I want font height to come in. Don't need the style anymore. Cool. Alright, what are we doing with the font? And how many more of these? It seems like this is going to go on for like... maybe we're getting close, actually. That looks like it could be the end of all of the errors. Alright, interesting. So anyways, draw file loaded. Just getting a pointer to the font. We're using the font height sum. And we have a file view, so it's going to be that view's font height. Oh, this is the one that draws the things. All the characters of the file. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of font stuff in here. I'm not sure why the font gets pulled out twice right there. And the font gets pulled out again right there. Alright, we're going to clean up all of this. This is a big one. So you are gone. Font ID. Yes. From font ID. Very good. Line height. We're gonna grab that right away from the view and just run with it. Okay, so we do end up needing to load the font there, as you would expect. So I'll do so there. Render font equals get font info. That's fine. That's fine. All I need is the font ID. You don't know the font ID? I haven't pulled that out ever. What? All of the code that I have written is stupid. Let's see, I want the font ID to get pulled out. Okay, now what about this spot here? State. Put stage. I wonder if the font comes up. No, it doesn't. It doesn't come up anywhere else at all. And that's why I decided to hoist that, or to unhoist that information, to bubble that information into a little tumor right there. That's stupid, but that's okay, because I'm undoing my mistakes now. Do I have the style? Okay. Ah. Hmm. Ugh, this code's so stupid. Okay. Connor Rentz asked what music I listen to. That's a involved question. Um, I listen to all kinds of things, like sometimes soundtracks from games or movies, or television shows. Sometimes, like classical types of music. Sometimes, all sorts of rock stuff. Sometimes, I don't know, just whatever hits me. How about, let's see, right now I'm really into, this musical called Chess. Just discovered that I liked it, so I've been listening to it. It's just kind of random. Wherever I find myself geared at any given time, I guess. Okay, so this thing is getting a font, and I have to find out what it's using the font for. Height. Alright, we can do that. Line height equals get font info. UI, or target. UI state font ID. I think that should just be like that. Wait, Abner Coimbray is saying that there was a Majora's Mask discussion at Handmade Con at the sports bar place, and it happened before I got there. I didn't know there was a discussion. I thought the discussion never happened. In fact, I thought I heard Abner say something along the lines of, "I'm too drunk tonight to do it, but it's going to happen." Are you sure there was a discussion? Are you sure that actually happened? There was a discussion, huh? Darn. Okay, I can't. No, Colonel Dragon was there at the same time I was. He arrived with me, so I don't know if his word can be trusted, but I'm pretty sure that there was no discussion. I mean, the way I remember things, there was no discussion. That's the way I remember things. Yeah, see, Chrono Dragon's got the memory that I have, which is that Casey said something along the lines of, "When is this going to happen?" And Abner said, "Soon." That's what I remember, but not tonight. I remember soon, but not tonight. So a whole font pointer is coming in now, which is interesting. Font ID. That's probably gonna have to. I'm gonna have to look at when that gets called. Yes, so that's looking at a font set. Which is a completely different concept now. And what we could do is say each thing is... Oh, I never finished that. See, what I'm thinking I want to do is I want to say that's all fine, and what we're going to do is up here, this is going to take a font ID, and then we're going to get a sub ID by something along the lines of the cast of the info, and then font info will come from get font info. Well, let me grab the render target from down there, just plop it in, and then the font ID, info height, UI layout, good, good, good. Where else does the font come up? Info name dot stir. Yes, 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 yes. Looks good. Alright, so, what is the first font used for? Okay, so I want to get the font info on that font. Kind of want the font ID to just hang around. So there we go. Info height. Character height. UI state. ID. -2 srec 2. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. That's all fine. That's all fine. Font ID. Font ID. Info. That's a matter of going to the target and getting the fonts. And I say if we're gonna get that anyway, pop it up here and use this version. Fonts. Now font info fonts equals info, except it's not really fonts, is it? It's more like infos. Fonts info, fonts count, I equals 0. Font option, how about that? And then the question is, if I equals font ID -1, continue, do font option, I +1, or I could do count, start you at 1, if I equals font ID, I1, UI state, style font equals font option. Font ID equals I. Font option goes away. Character height over 2. Draw a rectangle as okay. That's better off if we make that an I-16. Font get max width. Rendering helper. Font get max width. There it is. Render font. Try I-16 font ID. Render target. Target. Char data. Render font. Font equals get font info. Target. Font ID. Font. If font, then blah 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 blah. Boom. Boom. Alright, how are we doing? I feel like this must be close to the end. Alright, that feels like a shorter list. Alright, so, do style preview. What are we doing with the font in this case? Font height, font height, font height, font height, font height. Font's name. Okay, so we just need all of the info and the font ID. It's like all, it's just sort of all out there. So, where's the first place that we use it? I'll get it down there. Font, info, get font info, target, style, font ID, target, info height, font info height, font info height, font info height. There we go. Info height. Font ID. Font ID, font ID, font ID, font ID, font ID. No. Font ID. Gotcha. Font info. name string, info name string. Target font ID. Font ID. Info height. Info height. Info. Wrong font ID. Let's see, render font. What are we using the font for here? Okay, so I need font ID. I'm gonna need the render target. Okay. Font ID. Line height. Font ID. Font ID. Font. Okay, what is this font being used for? Seems like it's always the same things. That's all they ever want from me is the font height and the font ID. Alright. You go there. There you go. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. Okay. Font, what are you doing? Font height and the font pointer again. Alright, so these three guys here. Replace those two there. And that there. And then font height is line height. Font is font ID. Character H is the name I happened to use on this function. Alright. Alright, let's see. Character height. Get font info. Target font ID. Font ID. Style font ID. Character height. font ID. All right. Forgot my arrow. Missed one of the font pointers. Did I accidentally delete what that was? Oh man. Okay. I love this error that just says like, oh, function does not take 6 arguments. Okay, what does it take? Do I have to go look it up myself? Really? Okay. I will do it, but I'll be grumpy the whole time. Style, library, export. System, exchange, memory. System, exchange, memory. Font set. There we go. So it wants the font set there. Something like that, but I don't know if target is actually in scope. Yes, it is. Wait, the view has a font pointer too? Okay. That is a debug view. It is not the same thing as a file view, so that is okay. Okay, so I'm just wondering. Yeah, I've got a okay, it's in the parameters. Why is my order of parameters all messed up in this function? That's weird. I just do like random stuff. My code is so dumb. Okay, so the way this needs to work is font ID equals view font ID. Y advance. Oh, that's a new name for it. Get font info. Target font ID. Height. Font ID. Font ID. Alright. Same deal. Font ID. Get font info. Target font ID. Height. Y advance. Yes. Font ID. these are spectacularly easy. I wish they were all this easy. Font ID. There we go, another bad one. What is this font doing? Oh, oh, oh. That's some new stuff. I'm gonna have to say we actually need to load the font for that information. And so maybe something like this. Get font info, target font ID, the font itself, if font and all that, and do this path. Font ID equals font ID. There we go. What is this font doing? Height, height, render, render height, render height, render, render height, render height. Okay. Font ID. Okay, moving on. Alright, almost got it down to one page. Alright, view set file does not take 7 parameters. View set file. Let's see. Here's the view, here's the file, there's the set, there's the open hook, command context, there we go. Okay, so file, style, and then the set. So that comes from pointer to the vars, render target fonts, ba-boom. You're right. It's just the render target fonts. Okay, it's just target arrow fonts. Okay. What is it? What is it? We don't even have it. Well, I declare that that should be available in vars. So it's not available in bars. Oh, look, right there. Font set. Fonts. There you have it. It's available again. Jeez, oh Pete's. Okay. Stupid. Okay. Let me just check that real quick. File view, create, super locked. What do you want a render font for, my friend? File create from string. What do you want a render font for? State font. Bop, bop. What is this? I don't want any of that. File measure starts widths. Now what are you doing with the font? I assume you just need the advanced data? Yes. Advanced data. data equals font advanced data else dummy advanced data. Okay. File measure starts. Whoa. Old code be gone. File measures. More old code. Okay. Who cares? Okay. Ew, that kind of sucks. Abner Coimbra is asking me what my take is. So I'm gonna have to say that in general, it's like, we all just sort of have to do our best, to make new things and try to figure out new ways that the world can sort of expand. Try to be a part of the process of exploring the possibility space of the universe, I think is the point, would be my take, most likely. Unless you had a more specific topic in mind. Oh, you're discussing Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars? You want me to have a take on that? Hmm. 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 honestly, I can't even really think of a difference between Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. Like, I can't even differentiate between them. So, I mean, I know which one is which in terms of setting, but I mean, like, what's the material difference between them? I don't actually know. Alright, so the confusing thing about this moment here is the file has some state that contains information about what font that file is currently like. And it seems kind of weird, but when you have a file, what I'm doing is maybe a little bit sloppy, but the file knows what font it's currently being rendered in. So you can't have the same file open twice in two different fonts. Now, I could work on getting to a point where I had that, but the advantage to not having that is that it makes it very easy to associate data for the starts and widths of lines within the file. And the thing is, like, do I still agree with that, I guess, is the question. I guess I do, because I don't really want to change that, because it's a really big thing. I pushed this around a lot, and this is where I settled at one point. And I guess all I have to do is put a pointer to the font set into the file, and then it's done. Or maybe, do I have access to a view here, or is this a file level function? Yeah, so I guess the file just, if it already has the concept that a file is bound to a font, then either when you do an edit, you have to supply the set of fonts that you're bound to, or you have the pointer for the lookup within the file. It's not as, like, pleasing to me, but it's the easy thing to do. So the thing I need that will make this make more sense is when a font has finished loading and it wasn't loaded before, we have to, like, set a flag and process that and say, oh, anybody who was rendering with this font needs to remeasure the line widths now. I think jumping back into this Star Wars Lord of the Rings thing for one more second before I stop doing that is Garlando's take is pretty interesting in that, like, historically maybe Star Wars pushed a boundary at the time it was made. Uh, but honestly, like, literally every detail about them looks the same from where I am now. So if you're somebody who like cares, like understands creative history types things, maybe it's different. But like literally, think about all of these things. There's 6 movies, an original trilogy, and then a prequel trilogy. The original trilogy is better in either case. It's good versus evil. It's, one hero who's unlikely uh, to be a hero. It's like everything. There's different races, lots of factions. You're kind of adventuring from place to place. Uh, there's just so many similarities. I can't tell the difference between them in terms of what actually their principal parts of them. I don't see how, like, in terms of where they sit in history, they could be different, but they seem like when you're, at least from with the context I have. All right, so if I don't, that sucks. Do white space, batch edit. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so we need font set. I gotta wrap up soon. I'm encroaching within that 1 hour buffer space that I give to Handmade Hero so that I can prepare for Handmade Hero. Yes, okay. Fonts. Fonts plus 1, fonts. Fonts plus 2, fonts plus... Okay. So what happens there is very simple. Fonts equals 1. Style font into style font ID. Font ID changed into font changed. Alright, so this is about the end of the road, because this gets into setting up the actual, like, I've done all the nasty, like, transforms of the rest of the code base from using font pointers to using font IDs, which I should have anticipated sooner and taken care of sooner, because it's been, like, a couple of hours of work today and yesterday to fix that. I don't know, maybe that couple of hours of work is worth postponing it, though, so to get it right on the first try, but, I think that actually setting up the structure here is going to have to wait, because that's a whole nother implementation of the font set itself. It's a whole nother series of things I have to do, and I gotta cut off soon because we've got Handmade Heroes coming up soon. So I'm going to say thank you for coming. Probably will be one tomorrow, so if you want to catch more, stay on the lookout for that, and I'll see you guys around.